Welcome back, y'all. If y'all are new, my name is Missy, and this is from the Holler. And today we are doing episode 2 of Stories from the Holler. And I am actually getting excited about this series. I think this is going to be fun, and I know it's going to be good for me. And as I said, if this doesn't resonate with anybody else, it's something that I can do to put these memories on video, and maybe later on down the road when I'm gone, hopefully that is many moons from now, my kids will have this folder of videos of Mom, and my grandkids will have it of Nanny sitting and talking and telling the stories of her growing up and her memories of everything. And maybe that'll be something that they look forward to. I don't know. We'll see. But let's go ahead and get into today's memories and see where this leads us. So in the last episode, I told you all about how, I was taken to my grandmother's and dropped off, and, Mom and Dad never came and picked me back up. So that's what happened. I was a few weeks old when that happened, and they just never came back. But moving on from that, my grandmother was one of the strongest women I know. My granddaddy passed away several years before I was born. So grandmother was a widow woman. Now, 2 of my aunts and one of my uncles lived with her to help take care of the farm and take care of her and all the things. And, 2 of them married late in life. Just kind of recapping what I told y'all yesterday. Well, my grandmother, she was originally from Alabama, and her mother passed away at a very young age, and so her dad loaded all the kids on a train. They got train tickets, and they came up to Tennessee, and the kids were kind of spread out a little bit, I guess you could say. Different people helped to raise those kids. But my grandmother was really one of those women, or one of those people that helped take care of her siblings and her dad and all that. And when my granddaddy passed away, she just stepped right up to the plate and took control of the farm and knew what had to be done and had no problem telling anybody what they need to be doing, and didn't accept any talk back. No sass. Now, she could be full of sass, but you couldn't be full of sass back to her. She had never had a haircut. Never a day in her life. And she passed away at the age of 84. And she'd never had a haircut. And I thought that was just the most amazing thing in the world, and I wanted to be just like her. I wish I could go back and, change even getting a haircut to begin with. But anyway, she had the most beautiful, long, white hair ever. And every night she would brush it, and she would take the brush, and then it got to where she would use a comb, but she would brush it, and she would take the brush, and she would go through so much of it, and then she would pull it up and she would take another section of it and then pull it up again and take another section of it. And then every night before she went to bed, she would braid all that hair. And she would pull it over to the side and she would start braiding. And she would braid. And she would braid. And she'd pull it up and she would braid. And then in the mornings when she got up, she would take the braid out. And she had her bobby pins and her hair pins and all that. And she would take the braid out, she would brush through it one time, and then she would start flipping it. And she made a bun, and it was always perfectly centered on the back of her head. But she made a bun, and she would use them bobby pins and the hair pins and all the things, you know, and she would pat it. She was very proper about that. Now, in the summertime, bless her heart, she wasn't able to do a lot of things because she stayed busy. I mean, she was right out there in the fields with us, planting and hoeing and weeding and picking, and then on into the kitchen to preserve all this food. And we had pigs and chickens and cows and horses and all the animals. And you know, when it came time to harvest those, you know, she was right there in the midst of that too. And we had a smokehouse on the other side of the yard, right outside the back door. And I remember her going out there and, you know, cutting slices of meat off and bringing it in. And that's what we had for supper that night. Or for dinner, we call lunch dinner. Grandmother cooked 3 meals. We always had a big breakfast. And then we had a full-on lunch, you know. And we always loved it when Grandmother cooked green beans and new potatoes, because she would just leave things setting on the stovetop, and the stove sat right next to the back door. And as we would go out the back door, we could slip our hand into the pot and grab us, you know, a couple of new potatoes and eat them on the way out. And hers were the best. I have tried my absolute best to make her new potatoes, and I can't do it. I don't know what her secret was, but I can't do it. Mine just never turn out the way Grandmother's did. And I wish I had paid attention just a little bit more to catch her doing what she was doing for those new potatoes. Oh man, there were times that she didn't cook them in the green beans. She just put some butter. I swear it looked like she just put some butter in a pot, threw some of the small little new potatoes in, and cooked them in that butter. Oh man, put you some ketchup over top of that. That was the ticket. And the absolute best cornbread you would ever put in your mouth. Sorry about that. I had a little boy sliding a note up to me, telling me he had hurt his nose. Anyway, Grandmother's cooking. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Nothing better than that. Absolutely nothing. Everything that we ate came from that farm. Everything. From the meats to the veggies to everything. Absolutely everything. Lord, I wish I could go back to those days. Her fried chicken. Whew. Her fried chicken was out of this world. Like, it was just amazing. And I mean, I learned the fine art of picking them chicken bones until there was not a piece of meat left. Paps actually, he likes to comment, or he likes to aggravate me about how I eat chicken on the bone. He says it's almost cartoonish how clean I get them chicken bones. But I mean, back then it was so good. You didn't want to leave any of that meat on them bones. And plus, it was kind of frowned upon to waste any food. So if you got a piece of chicken, then you were expected to eat that piece of chicken. Okay? We didn't waste food at all. Not at all. But yeah, I miss her food. I think that was part of her love language, making sure that we all had plenty, and that we were all happy, and that we sat at the dinner table and we ate meals together every day. Every day. And it got quiet while we were eating, but we all talked and fellowshipped and different things, and I tried to incorporate that into my family when my kids were younger. Sometimes I was able to, sometimes I wasn't. It just all depended on who was doing what and who was on what schedule. And I mean, it was just, but at grandmother's house, mealtime, you put everything aside. We all came in out of the fields or out of the yard or whatever we were doing, and we sat down and we had meals together. Didn't matter. Everything else is put aside. And on Sundays, if we had a guest preacher or guest singers at church, they were always invited back to grandmother's house. And everybody was always excited about going to Miss Amy's house and having dinner, because they knew and they knew that the fellowship was going to be out of this world. So we came to know and be friends with a lot of missionaries and a lot of evangelists and a lot of singers back in the day. If you are from around these parts and you were up on a Sunday morning, then you were watching or listening to the Mull Singing Convention. Everybody knew J. Basil Mull and Miss Mull, and everybody knew who they were, and they always had the gospel singers and stuff like that on. And we were friends or acquaintances of J. Basil and Miss Mull, and yeah, so many good times in that kitchen. So many good times. Just so many good times in that house. It's unreal. Now my grandmother, she had a very sharp tongue. She had a very sharp wit also. She didn't take anything from anybody. Okay. Again, this is my daddy's mama, and he inherited it from her, and I guess I inherited it from him. I don't know, or maybe I got it from her. I learned it from her. But you just didn't talk back to my grandmother, and I'll never forget the couple of times that I thought I was going to talk back to my grandmother. Looking back on it now, it's laughable. it's funny to me because she was serious, okay? She was serious. And it broke my heart. But now it's like, really? It was time to wash my hair. Now, again, my hair was down to my butt. I had long blonde hair, and it was down to my butt, and it was time to wash my hair. And it was almost like baptizing a cat to wash my hair. I hated having it done because I knew at the end of it, they were going to brush my hair. And back then, we didn't have, the leave-in conditioners or the tangle-free spray or anything like that. All we had was an old, I swear it felt like metal bristles, an old brush, and it dug into your scalp, and I swear it touched brain. I'm not even kidding. I swear it touched brain. And with somebody with long hair like that, it was painful. Like, it would pull my whole piece of skin, all this back, and oh yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But grandmother she told me, get in here, let's get your hair washed. She would always, her and anyone would always wash my hair, and she told me, get in here, let's get your hair washed. And I didn't want to. I didn't want no part of that. And I took off running out the back door. Well, when I looked around, grandmother was right behind me. Now, my grandmother was all of maybe 4'11". She wasn't very tall. I think I got that from her too. And she was a little short, robust lady. And here she came out the back door behind me, and she was running after me, and she told me, she said, if you don't stop and get in here in this house, when I catch you, I'm going to whoop your butt. And I must have laughed or something. I don't remember exactly what I did or what I said. But y'all, she caught me. She caught me. And she grabbed my hand and she led me back in that house. And she grabbed an empty paper envelope. And I thought I had one laying here. It was a legal size. One of them big ones. And she whooped me with that envelope. An empty paper envelope. She whooped me with that. And I'll never forget, she was just swinging that envelope. She had that tongue. She didn't have any teeth. She had that tongue hung out the side. She meant business. Whooping me with that paper envelope. And of course, it broke my heart. I cried like I had just been, beat with a belt. But it was a paper envelope. And it was empty. It hurt my soul more than it hurt anything else. But I got in there and let her wash my hair. And, whoo, she was a little extra rough brushing my hair that day. Oh, it was bad. It was bad. But I'd give anything for her to be around and wash my hair now. Or just brush my hair. Just brush it. just brush it. When she washed your hair, she dug into your scalp. And it was this action, And yeah, it was like she was taking aggressions out on your hair. That was probably the worst whooping. It was one of the only ones. I didn't get very many from grandmother, okay? But that was probably one of the worst whoopings in my mind at the time that I ever got from my grandmother. Such sweet memories. Oh, she was a mess. She was a mess. But she loved the Lord. She loved her family. She loved me. She taught me how to be the strong, independent woman that you see in front of you today. Don't take no bull from anybody. Don't let anybody know that you're scared. Stand up for yourself. Nobody else is going to. Stand up for yourself. If you are 100% in your heart for sure that you're right about something, stand up for that. There's a song that says you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. They must have heard my grandmother say that a million times. She always had love for the people around her. Always. Going back to grandmother's hair. Grandmother had never worn makeup at all. She had never had a haircut. She had never had fingernail polish on or anything like that. And when she was sick, there, close to the end, I told her one day, I said, I said, one of these days I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put your makeup on and I'm going to do your fingernails. And she said, no, you will not. And I said, Grandmother, it'd be fun. It'd be cute to see you. She said, no, it would not. She said, I am not going to have that stuff put on my face and go to see the Lord, get up there to heaven to meet Jesus and God above and have that stuff on me. You hear me? Don't you ever. She said, if I have to get up out of this bed. I said, I'm just playing with you. And she said, we're not going to talk like that. We're not going to do that. She said, don't you do it. Yes, ma'am. I got you. I got you. I would never, ever, ever, ever. She was a very simple woman in every aspect. But man, oh man, was she the best. And just awesome. Just awesome. And I miss her so bad. So bad. especially watching her do her hair. She would sit in an old wooden rocking chair and she would sit at the front door. There was a wood stove. We heated with a wood stove, and it was sitting right there. As you walked in the front door, there sat the wood stove. And she would sit there at the wood stove in that rocking chair, and she'd watch out the front door. And at that point in time, there wasn't a whole lot of people that lived on this road. So we knew everybody. It was either family or, people that had married into the family or whatever, family and friends. We went to church together or whatever. And she would watch for people to come in, and if they didn't go by the house at the time she thought they should, she was worried about them, and she'd just sit there and she would roll her thumbs and she'd ask Nanny, "Have you seen so and so?" "No, Mama, I hadn't." "Well, they've not went through yet. They're going to be late." She's a little nosy too. And she'd say, "Well, there goes Kermit. There goes Imogene." Well, they didn't blow their horn when they passed by this time. Oh, yeah. My grandmother was a mess. An absolute mess. One more memory, and then I'm going to end this one. Oh, Lord, this is awful. So, back in those days, women wore pantyhose, okay? We wore pantyhose. And I thought I was just as grown as the rest of them. I needed some pantyhose. Well, and you'd have like a whole dresser drawer just for your pantyhose. Like, that's what that drawer was for your pantyhose. Well, grandmother didn't like pantyhose. She liked thigh highs, and they did better for her, or she'd do thigh highs or she'd do knee highs, okay? And she never wore a pair of pants. No, I didn't have on a pair of pants until I went and visited Mom and Dad. Like, I wore dresses all the time, okay? That's what little women, I won't say little girls, but little women were supposed to do. I was never really allowed to be a little girl. But, yeah, she wore dresses all the time that my Aunt Sue made. So anyway, one Sunday, we were getting ready to go to church, and grandmother and my uncle went on to church ahead of us. We were running behind. Now, Nanny never learned how to drive, so we kind of depended on others to get us where we need to go and back. Grandmother never learned how to drive. So, again, we had to depend on others. And so me, Nanny, and my Aunt Sue were behind, and I went to grab me a pair of pantyhose, and I didn't have any. Well, I had some, but they all had runs in them. And back then the trick was to use the clear nail polish and all that. Well, I didn't have time to let all that dry and all that, so I just ran in and I grabbed a pair of thigh highs out of my grandmother's drawer. Now, it's not like we bought pantyhose brand new every week, okay, because we didn't. We wore them suckers until they were nothing but clear nail polish. Or Aquanet. Every now and then you could spray some Aquanet on there and stop the run. We wore the snot out of them. And I just grabbed them and run out to the car. I used to run around barefoot all the time, and I still prefer to. So, it was nothing for me to grab my shoes and stuff, run out to the car, and I'd put them on in the car. So I get out to the car, and I start putting on these thigh highs. And I realized that the elastic in the top of these thigh highs it was a little wore out, a little stretched out. Okay, I had the bird legs of a preteen girl, and grandmother had the legs of a full-grown woman. And she had these thigh highs for a while. So, yeah, I put them on. And I thought, I can make it work. I'm just going to walk in church. But my leg was swimming in the top of these. So I pulled them up as far as they would go. And my grandmother always sat on like the second row of pews in the church. So you had to walk all the way from the back to the front, down to the front to get to her. And most of the time, I would sit with my friends or whatever. But for whatever reason that day, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go up here and sit with my grandmother. And I'm going to show her that I am a big girl. And I can wear her pantyhose. Y'all, when you're that young, you cannot hold these thigh highs on your legs, okay? I could reach down and hold on. No. Oh, it would have looked so awkward. And it probably did. I know I was walking crazy stupid. And I get up there and I'm almost to grandmother's pew, okay? Almost. And I took a step, and I had little heels on my shoes, my little church shoes. And I turned my ankle, and I reached out to grab and catch myself. And when I did, those thigh highs hit the floor, and they were like a puddle around my ankles. My grandmother said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I didn't have any pantyhose." "Well, where'd you get them at?" And I said, "From your drawer." She said, "Missy down. Sit down and don't you move." So I did. I pulled those thigh highs all the way back up again. And I made it to where, it looked halfway decent, unless you saw the debacle that had happened back in the middle of the church. You would never know that I had on my grandmother's thigh highs. You'd never know. And then came the time the preacher gave the altar call. He closed out that service. Told us all to go around, shake hands with everybody, say hey to everybody that was there that day. My grandmother looked at me and she said, "Don't you move." I said, "What if somebody wants to shake my hand?" She said, "Don't you move." So here I am, probably 10, 11 years old, something like that. And I'm just sitting there like a knot on a log. And everybody's coming around, shaking hands and stuff. And she made me sit there in that church, on that pew, until everybody had left that church before she would let me get up to go to the car. When we got to that car, she turned around and looked at me and she said, "Don't you ever." And I said, "I'm sorry." And she looked at my aunt and she started laughing. She said, "We got to get that girl some pantyhose." Well, y'all, I'm going to wrap up today's episode here. I hope that you guys have enjoyed a few more of my memories. There's no telling what's coming next. There's really not, because I don't even know. I don't have an actual plan for this series. As they're coming to me, I kind of write down kind of what they are, and then I just go from there, and whatever else comes to mind while I'm talking to you guys, it just comes out. This is so much from the heart. So much. So, thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for being here.
Bye.
Thank y'all for supporting our little channel. If you don't mind, give this a thumbs up.
And subscribe, okay? Just hit that little red button there. Turn it gray, okay? But if you're on a computer, it will be white, and then you turn it gray.
You know way too much about this stuff, dude. Anyway, like and comment, because that really helps us to continue to build our little YouTube channel.
We would love for you to do that, okay?
You need a haircut. Anyway, much love to each and every one of y'all, and we will see you all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.